if you had just 30 seconds to give any piece of advice to a creator in terms of brand deals and contracts, what would that look like?
It's not like negotiation is not over until you sign your name on the dotted line.
That's awesome.
I would say that. Yeah.
Good to know.
I'll just leave it at that.
From a brand perspective now, what do you think are the most important pieces that brands should be including in these contracts, right? They want to go and they want to work with a content creator on TikTok or Instagram. Maybe it's some longer term deal. Like, what are the key elements that they need to have in these contracts?
Well, I think the first would almost be closely similar to how I evaluate, an influencer's contract from their lens, right? Making sure your payment terms are fair, right? You know when they're going to get paid. They know how they're going to get paid. Is there a late fee attached? All those sorts of things. What sort of expectations are expected of the influencer in terms of invoicing, having their W-9 form sent and stuff like that. Like, I really think that payment terms are just as important on the brand side as they are for the influencer. I think the next thing has to do with rights, right? You have to make sure that your rights and usage are protecting you as the brand. I mean, it's going to be very different from how an influencer sees it because the brand is just wanting to protect themselves as much as possible. So I think, being as broad as possible with, licensing and stuff like that if possible, or if they are working with influencers on the basis of creating content specifically for the brand's account, like it's not going to live on that influencer's account, then, maybe something that will, again, reflect that they are getting their rights in that and that there is like a work for hire kind of piece to it. But again, that's going to depend on the nature of the deal. And then, one final thing has to do with indemnification. I think that's like a huge thing that brands have to be very cautious about because third parties might get involved and might have all these claims that are related to the content that's being generated. And you want to protect yourself as a brand from any like lawsuits and stuff like that might come about as a result. So I think that's really important. And then one final thing is limitation of liability, because limitation of liability, I think, caps your damages. It's not meant to kind of like make the damages more exorbitant than they need to be, just sticking to the value of the contract. Oh, and I had another one. Oh, and then of course, independent contractor language, that this relationship isn't meant to be an employer-employee kind of thing, even if the brand is hiring the influencer for brand, account living content, that delineation needs to be clear because they need to protect themselves from like, taxation and stuff like that, which is like out of my wheelhouse, but I know it's important.
Do you think brands should be sending contracts over even if they are only providing free product? You see that a lot where brands are going for much smaller creators to say, hey, we'll send you over, I don't know, $100 of free product, or we'll send you our new whatever it is. Should brands be using contracts for that? Or is there like a certain threshold where it makes sense? Like if it's, they're doing $100 for a sponsored post. What's your opinion on that?
I think my philosophy on gifted partnerships is that, it's not a gift anymore, right? It's if you're asking for deliverables, it's one thing to send gifted product and hope that the, influencer enjoys the product and enjoys the experience and posts about it. And then maybe that invites a secondary conversation to say, hey, I really like your stuff and I'm going to pay for it. I mean, that's like my ideal, like utopia world of the way that I would like to see gifted partnerships work, is to get to a point that maybe, oh, wow, this content is doing great. Let's give them a little bit of money to like repost it and stuff like that is, the idea, so that maybe we get a contract in that, scenario. In general, if there's some sort of expectation by the brand about deliverables and all that stuff, yeah. I mean, I don't care what the value of the product is. If you're expecting a creator to deliver something in exchange for your product, there should be a contract, because that also should define how it is that you're, utilizing the content. Otherwise, the brand is left with really no rights in the content anyway. So in my mind, it only makes sense to, have a contract so that the brand's protected, not just the influencer.